Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Daily Brief. Woohoo! Woohoo! Hope you guys had a good Christmas. Spent the day with the boy yesterday, so it was a bit of a challenge, but got to say, once that challenge is done, I breathe a huge sigh of relief. But hope you all had a good holiday with your family and all that. Got to sneeze. Hold on a second. That's a nice way to start the video. Sorry, everybody. Anyway, on the tail end of this cold, so thank you, sir. How are you doing this morning, Mr. Habsburg? Mr. Habsburg's here with us this morning.
I'm pretty good, actually. Just hanging out with the family in Linz and, enjoying some post-Christmas time, I guess.
Is your better half, did she spend it with her family, or do you guys all meet together?
No, she actually had to fly on Christmas, but today we visited her grandparents together, so that was pretty nice, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. All right. Stock markets are doing their thing, and unfortunately, I put out tweets recently to the effect that, don't be surprised at how things are going here. Lots of talk recently with this community, and I even tried to sort of convey it to the public, but very often trade wars end ugly. It should be a really good lesson for all of us. What happens when you just throw a wrench into the works? And, in a weird sort of way, it's sort of like careful what you wish for. You might just get it good and hard. So we got the market coming off here, and it's coming off very violently. Lots of rants that I've talked about recently are to the effect of I think that this is more a sort of position squaring kind of market heading into a new structure of a U.S. government. No longer do we have sort of just one political party driving the bus. And of course, that political party was extremely pro-business. You might even argue, this is where Mr. Trump and the Republicans sort of took over the U.S. government, and as a result, this was sort of the end result of that shift in power to the right wing. Now that the power is shifted back to the left wing, it shouldn't surprise us to see equity prices come off here a bit. Alex and I were sort of musing earlier about where we kind of think that this market is coming, and he had sort of made the point that off of the higher time frames, if we look at like the monthly charts, we've done some serious technical damage here to this market. It's going to take some time for the bull to sort of re-exert itself. And I think, we were actually bantering around charts this morning, kind of thinking along the lines, and ironically enough, I still totally think that Bitcoin's a great leading indicator. And, I suppose, where is our sort of Bitcoin chart? Do I have that on here? I thought I have it on here. One of these crazy charts. One of these charts is not like the other, but I can't find it to save my soul. No, I've lost it. Anyway, I'll probably turn up. I think it was this one. Yeah, there we go. So Bitcoin peaks, semiconductors as a classic leading indicator in the economy peaks shortly thereafter. And then finally, the stock market peaks well after the event. Throwing baby out with bathwater. We've sort of talked a little bit about this, in the broiler chicken show and all that kind of stuff. If you were going to do any tax loss selling and you had to get it done by the end of the year, remember stocks are 3-day settlement. So that means you can't sell on the 31st and have it settle for year end. You have to sell 3 days ahead of that event. So I had sort of pointed out on broiler chicken shows, and I can't remember whether I talked to you guys in the daily brief about this, but really, if we're going to see tax loss selling, it will probably hit its climax here on the 27th, or basically tomorrow. So with that said, it doesn't surprise me to see the market a bit softer here this morning. But at the same time, too, putting on new shorts down here, I think is asking for trouble. Let's see, where do I have that? Over here, we can see stock markets opened up on a stronger note, which is nice. They actually went and printed new lows on things like the Dow, and then we've just gone into massive face rip rally mode. And on balance, we never did get much of a Santa Claus rally there this year, which is odd because, in 30 years that I've been playing this game, that's the first year I've ever actually seen the market act like this. But, given the cycle pivots, I don't think it should surprise us that we're going to see things through this massive cycle pivot that we just don't see very often. And actually, when I was chatting just before we got the video going here this morning, I was showing the celestial events. And this is actually a pretty big celestial event for the planet Earth and our whole solar system for that matter. And you could argue that 2018, June, July, that's sort of where we are. August, we actually had a really cool, and where is Uranus here? We had a really cool 90-degree angle set up on Earth, Venus, and Uranus. I think this is Uranus down here, yeah. And that came in, I think, sometime middle of the summer. Might have been, well, you can definitely see there's a 120-degree angle there. But if I'm not mistaken, into the end of the year, we came up and had like a 90-degree angle on Earth, Venus, and Uranus. But I guess the big pivot that I'm thinking about now, and we'll keep an eye on these EVUs as we go along. I know it sounds kind of odd and esoteric, but you can see Jupiter and Saturn here are coming close to a cross. And usually when they cross, they only cross about every, 35, 40 years. Usually there's some pretty wonky stuff that happens to us humans here on planet Earth. This is when Hitler invaded Russia. This was, the same event happened when, at the peak of the Soviet Union, late 70s, 1980 Moscow Olympics, all that stuff. So, as well as being a big generational shift, this is a big solar system shift as well. I like to talk a little bit about this kind of stuff. I know it's a bit esoteric and it's a bit off base, but nonetheless, it to me, as a guy who's been playing this market for a very, very long time, I love to see these long-term cycle pivots. And to me, something pretty significant is happening in our solar system and our sort of our whole existence here in our little local community here over the next couple of years. So on balance, things are going to be really wonky for the next couple of years, which really sucks. But we got to get through it, no doubt about it. My hunch is, and it's really interesting listening to the crypto universe. This A. Pompeia guy, he's all, buy Bitcoin, short the bankers. I believe that we're heading into a massive demographic shift where the millennials will be taking over the economy. And I can see it in all of you guys. You are, to the greater extent, you guys are the millennial generation. And your whole sort of philosophy of the stock market and the way that the 20th century economy was built and functioned is changing. There's no doubt about it. The only issue is we have to get through this transition period, and it's going to take some time. And sort of what we were talking about just there a moment ago, I actually think that we're coming into an important sort of pivot here. A lot of people that we talk to and teach in the programs, we try to use the 50% rule as, Mr. Gann as an important reference point here. We also have this cheeky little gap here against these key lows that should supply some support to the market. Maybe we just keep careening down into reload zones here over the short term. But my hunch is putting on new short positions here is kind of asking for trouble. And I actually like the idea, if you can, to start building positions. Try and buy into this weakness. It's the classic contrarian sort of message here. And I think I actually put it out on Twitter this morning. What I found really interesting was data starting to come out showing that insiders are actually buying a lot of stock right now. So insider stock buying surges to an 8-year high here. And in essence, like to actually make money from trading, a lot of the time you have to take a very contrarian sort of approach. I don't know. Do you guys remember through the end of the summer there, I was beating the bear drum in the stock market, and yet almost everybody in the public was kind of being critical of me of getting so bearish. Well, ironically enough, I'd actually argue that we're in the exact opposite scenario now. And just a couple names. This isn't exhaustive, and I think probably it's not in our it's not a bad idea for us to keep doing the research, keep hunting for those TRI SOFs. But a couple names that were came up here recently. One oil stock, you can see how they've just thrown the baby out with the bathwater. Here, he's actually moving up. And if we actually take a look at the energy space here, what I'm seeing is quite a few of these sort of like, look at all the trap bears now. And Alex even mentioned that he saw this massive tail and he goes, holy crap, look at all those trap bears. You can see it to a certain degree in the crude price here out of New York, but wow, look at Brent. I mean, all of these guys that went all piling in on the short side here below $50, they're all dying 1,000 deaths right now. And I think that's got to be sort of the general message of the market here. I'm not really a big fan of putting on new shorts here. I do know that there are some people that had shorts on, and if you're in a free position and you want to sort of try and squeeze out as much as possible from shorts, not a bad idea. If anything, we probably got a really good lesson here, like in the gold market, where I had a free position on the books on Goldcorp. On Barrick. And I just walked away from the entire trade at a really nice profit. And I certainly can't criticize myself. I mean, basically, I made money from trading. It'll be interesting. This is a TSX listed, so it'll be interesting to see how this acts when Toronto opens up tomorrow. Toronto, excuse me, hold on. Just for the record, the U.S. market is open today, but a country like Canada, Boxing Day is technically a holiday here, so the Canadian markets are closed today, and I think some of the European markets are closed as well. So we do have to take, some of what we see in the market today with a bit of a grain of salt. In that, when the whole world sort of comes back online in earnest tomorrow, and remember, tomorrow's that last day of tax loss selling. We might see a bit more fireworks. And as we sort of pointed out just a moment ago, I'd actually like to see the market have a candle body close down in here to fill this gap in. But, we're traders. We got to go with whatever the market gives us. If they do put in a W here and we start working our way higher, well, then that's your seasonal bottom. But I wouldn't be surprised if there is another probe down against these lows here into tax loss selling event tomorrow. So, on balance, I actually do like the idea of hunting long ideas if you can think into the spring and the summer. This was one energy name, like we said. Zach found it for us. I think there's probably money to be made here. Maybe even take a look at these calls here today, because I think we originally did this study when the stock was a little bit higher here. But you can even see a monstrously huge tail here. So, maybe over the next week or something, we slowly fill that in. But interestingly enough, looking at a stock like General Electric, same sort of idea, they're just basically throwing the baby out with the bathwater here, just destroyed. What I do really like about this is they left a gap down at the bottom here, and you can see they've just quietly come back down and filled in this gap here. So very, very interesting. Haven't quite got to the point of pulling the trigger here yet, though, but I am awfully, awfully close. Little juniors, as I said, the Canadian market is closed today, so I'm not doing any business, but same sort of logic. And interestingly enough, we'll talk about the metals in a moment, but if the metals actually do perform here, a lot of these names that I am buying, Timberline's in the gold, the metals business, Orstone's in the metals business, New Caroline's in the metals business. Maybe that's sort of the writing on the walls to produce our doubles and triples and quadruples and stuff off of these VCIM names into that seasonal peak. That's not a terrible thesis here going forward. For whatever it's worth, those people that are interested in the pot stocks, I'm actually starting to see some interesting potential pivots here. We'll keep an eye out whether these W's come in going forward. And if anything, kind of the same sort of thing that maybe stocks have hit a capitulation. These bonds, the bond ETF here, considering the way stocks were acting on the open, this thing did not go to new highs. It's looking awfully heavy here. So we may see the bond market calm down a little bit. And interestingly enough, like you can actually see on the long end, the yields here, actually trying to put in a bit of a bottom here. So we might actually see the bond market come back down here a bit if stocks can catch a bid. Let's see, anything in particular we want to talk about? Interesting to see US dollar here trying to recover after its break here after that last Fed meeting. Japanese yen still very, very strong, but these gaps here, as I've sort of said before, they kind of bother me a little bit here for the long side. And it's interesting how the gold also has a gap that corresponds with those gaps there as well. So, I suppose we ought to talk a little bit about gold here. I was fascinated, on the Broiler Chicken show, I kind of had mentioned that, all the currencies are still pointing down, so you're not really getting any help there on the trends. US dollar really hasn't broken in earnest, and the trend still appears to be up. And I'm still looking for a much, much stronger price in US dollar going forward. Could we have a bit of counter trend rally here? Sure. But trends here for the time being still appear to be very much down and up for the US dollar. Stock, same sort of thing. As I had mentioned earlier, Alex had talked about how, we've done a lot of real nasty technical damage. It's going to take some time here before the stock market is like, I'm a bull. Probably what we're going to see here is, seasonal rallies, buy your unloaded the middle of February, sell at the middle of May and made money. 9 out of the past 10 years kind of scenario. If this takes like a month or so to actually put in some sort of technical bottom and then turn back up, that wouldn't surprise me. And those counter trend rallies, into resistance are probably going to be wicked selling windows for a lot of stock market sort of pros. As I had said earlier, interesting to see, we talked about a little bit about the bonds. The short end of the curve, the trend has turned up, but that long end of the curve in the U.S. still hasn't turned back up yet. So I don't know whether the long end of the curve is ready to rock and roll here. But what I wanted to point out was that I think I talked about this a moment ago. Energy prices seem to be trying to find some sort of pivot panic low here. So I'm going to be watching, and of course our TRI SOF ideas. I wouldn't be surprised if we could go and pull up at least a half a dozen names in the energy space that the call options look kind of interesting. So I might be doing that over the next little bit. But I guess the market that I wanted to talk to you guys about that just continually surprises me is this gold market. We had the trending signal there come in last week. And we are getting follow through here, so that's encouraging. But the market that jumped out at me today was the silver market, just popping violently higher here. And I think I was looking at this with another site member here earlier this morning. Where the hell's that chart? Kind of around here somewhere. Bear with me here a second. Yeah, here we are. I'm wondering whether, kind of like Bitcoin, and we'll get to it in a bit, whether we have maybe a megaphone happening here. If we think AB equals CD, and likely upside objective is probably somewhere around that 15.5 area here on this pop. But I really don't like the fact that the market made new lows here. And if we change this to a line chart, you can see that on a line chart basis, we made a new low there. We did put in this very cute little W here, and that's sort of what's predicated this rally here just in the short term. As I had shown you, the trend, I mean, this market is still very, very heavy. But, and because these are new lows and new highs, this creates like that megaphone. And I'm just worried that, everybody's going to pile in on the long side, get all super bullish, and then we roll over and we have to come right back down into the soup. And you can actually see there's a bunch of gaps here. I don't know whether we can do gap theory on this. I don't know whether I would call that a breakaway. If anything, this might be our breakaway. So let's see, this is a daily chart. So let's see if tomorrow we get some follow through here. And then maybe we can start thinking about upside objectives. If we just draw a nice simple trend line off of these peaks, you can see there is 38.2 off of this entire range. So that's like 16 3/4, and that would come up against this trend line as well. So, I don't like this kind of chart. This chart is very sloppy. It's very disorganized. Market will do any old damn thing at once. Always remember that, guys. Right? No matter how strong your thesis is. Remember, this is the business of strong opinions loosely held. And if this metals market does want to pivot, interesting, if we just go off of this range here, you can see 38.2 up to 50% is going to take us into this traffic area. So I do like the idea of silver moving up a bit higher here, but I'd be really looking for this pullback here to sort of set up a trade if there is one. And, sort of thinking along those lines, continuing that thought pattern, I noticed that the gold and silver stocks have actually put in a double bottom as well. And that's pretty important, because I often suggest that the stocks themselves will actually dictate the trend going forward. Who better to know a company, a business fundamentals than the people who are actually in the business? And if we do our little reload zones, you can see that basically we came right down into a reload zone, and we've tried to put in a bottom here. I think, as I told you recently, and I'm sure everybody on the site's well aware, I did play the gold bounce off of the lows through Barrick, but, gee whiz, these stocks are looking awfully nosebleedy now. I can't really touch them at this point. And unfortunately, that might be the message I have to convey to you guys for the next little while. Keep in mind, this is a weekly price chart. We change this back to a daily. If I was going to be a buyer here, you can see the double bottom in the gold stocks is trying to come in. I think I might have to try and target like this gap here that aligns with all the other gaps that we saw in like the yen and the euro and the gold itself, right? But, this might play out for a little while before we come down and fill in these gaps. So, anyway you shake it, the metals have caught a bid here. I can't really chase, as I've said before, but I will definitely be keeping an eye on this. And as I said also, too, in a weird sort of way, I'm actually positioning myself to take advantage of this, in that I bought a whole bunch of these VCIM names that happen to be in the gold and silver business: Orestone, Timberline, New Carline, couple of these sort of, rare earth plays, Voltaic, Lithium Energy. And I'm even still trying to buy a little bit more this Vanadium Energy, which is more sort of a uranium play. So we'll see how that goes. That may be my proxy here going forward. I suppose we could also maybe take a look at the mid-tier gold names. This Alio. We've been talking lots about this over the past year or two. I suppose, we had originally thought that the stock was going to bottom down around this gap area. And usually $1 a share, pretty important level for these junior stocks. So you can see the market is trying desperately to put in a bottom off of that dollar level. And if the gold market does get going in earnest, you can see there's lots of profit opportunity for this thing. So, I might just sneak in. Keep in mind, this is a Toronto listed stock, so Toronto's closed today. They did leave a cheeky little gap down here at 90 cents, and that might correspond with the whole market coming back down, filling in all those other gaps. But if anything, what I'd like to see out of this, if we could get it, is there's sort of your trend line. If this level can be taken out tomorrow, pow, right, then this trend line becomes a validated trend line. And I would be sort of hunting buys against this trend line going forward. Might even create like a little trend line window there. Yeah, right in there. So any kind of dips into this zone right here, I might consider buying windows right into there. So we'll see if this thing can break out. But congrats to those people that were able to sneak their way in off of this one. I didn't really like the amount of shares outstanding on this, so I didn't really get too excited about it. But looks like it's trying to pivot. And not a bad example of a little sort of intermediate gold stock that you could consider here. And of course, if we break to new lows here, you probably are best just to walk away. Right. So it's basically a stock market. Just to sort of finish off that thought. Are there, does it make sense what we're seeing out of these names this morning? Amazon, I heard, had a pretty good Christmas. Looks to me like they're trying to carve out an empire down in here. A little bit early for us to get too bullish here. And you can see, and, Alex again had mentioned this. I do kind of like the idea of dead cat bounces into resistance. You can definitely see the original market structure failure. If we go clotheslines, it's up there. If we go intraday bars, it's down there, but just sort of something in this area. There is reload zones. So it's actually extremely cliche what we see happening here. The only question ultimately is, do we really have any sort of base to work with here? Coming off of this move, you can see because of this doji gap here, we probably could see some short-term play back up into this area here. That really wouldn't surprise me at all. But we're still, way, way, way too early for us to call the bottom. And kind of like what I showed you on S&Ps, this area over on this side of the chart might have to have a little bit more action in here. But I think, if anything coming out of Christmas event and sort of tallying up retail sales and stuff, I wouldn't be surprised if this thing catches a bit of bid and works its way right back up into these moving average resistance areas. So that's kind of what I'm seeing going forward, dead cat bounce. And then, as I sort of pointed out on the S&Ps, this sort of bigger picture thought, I actually think the real stock market crash, like we haven't seen anything yet, guys. This is, if anything, this is almost like a prelude to the actual real disaster. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually rally back up into resistance, blah, 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 blah. And then 2019, 2020, when the yield curve officially inverts, maybe we have further scandals out of the White House. Who knows? Mr. Trump's going to have a bit of a challenge over the next year or two with the Congress that he's going to have to deal with. And then there's that Jupiter-Saturn cross. I actually think the next big, the real stock market crash doesn't come in till next year. And actually a really good example of this, if we go back to the 2007, 2008 market, 2007, we actually, this is the S&Ps. You can see that the market actually topped in October 2007. broke, came screaming down, and this is actually what I think our sort of future looks like here, where we actually have a bit of a seasonal rally into, do you see that? It says May right there. Do you think that's an accident? You know, I wouldn't be surprised if we get some sort of dead cat bounce out of these lows, which actually sets up the actual real crash scenario, which is next year. Like, that's actually what I'm kind of thinking. Yeah, basically, you know, and if anything, I think this is probably a good analogy. Buy when it snows, right? This is December, January, mark the low, right? Or sell when it goes, rally up into the spring. You know, there's probably going to be a half decent energy rally through here. You guys have heard me say before, you know, buy your unleaded the middle of February, sell it the middle of May. You made money 9 out of the past 10 years. We look at some TRI SOFs and we can see that some of the energy names, look at this motherfucker now. You know, wow, what a rally off of the lows there. But I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, there's some sort of seasonal trade in here out of energy. And then, you know, into next spring, summer, that's where actually the real sort of selling window really rocks and rolls. And notice, too, that on this rally, the moving averages are going to squeeze in tightly here. And I think we kind of talked about this recently. If we actually look at a lot of these, well, even, you know, the currencies for that matter, you know, the moving averages could all squeeze in tightly here. You can see the squeeze tried to happen here in the Rand. And really, you know, talking about stocks, right, you can see they're wide here. There's probably going to be a squeeze if the market comes back in, that these moving averages contract back in a little bit. So, you know, they're pretty wide right now. You know, if we look at like the German stock market, here's probably a really good example. You can see how wide they are here. Is it really that good of an idea to get too bearish when they're extremely wide like this? Like here, for example, you can see extremely wide, and you actually should have looked for this counter trend rally. So they're pretty darn wide here. My hunch is needs to be some sort of counter trend rally for the moving averages to contract. Okay, I think that's about all stock market I really wanted to talk to you guys about today. Again, you know, if you can get out there in the market and actually take advantage of these weaknesses and you're in there hunting, I think there's actually some real bargains here. One stock actually that's jumped out at me, I was surprised when I was reading through the rags this morning. I don't necessarily have a quote unquote buy signal here. But man, I heard a lot of brokerage houses are coming out and saying that this Roku is their #1 stock pick for 2019. Their #1 stock pick. Like, gee whiz, that's pretty bullish. And I suppose you could make the argument. The only thing that I don't like about this is this big old goddamn hole in the charts right here. 78.6, you know how much Brian loves 78.6s, and this, interesting enough, is actually basically right off the initial W that was put in price down here. Interesting also too, as the market's working its way down, you can see that the selling volume is quieting down here. If anything, really good example of that sort of you know, bearish impetus conversation that I like to have with the level ones. We'll know that the bear has gone to sleep when we see, you know, it looks like this was, I guess, well, I guess that's even today's bar. You know, if we can finish relatively quietly here and then print a down bar that's
Right. Looks like we kind of lost Mr. Brian there.
Am I here? Can you hear me? Google's playing
You're
with us.
back. You're not screen sharing currently, but you're back.
All right. Let's see if I do that. No. So I'm gonna have to hop out and I'll have to pop back in. So I'll see you.
All right.
Maybe sing a Austrian Christmas song for all these people while I'm gone.
Yeah, I guess we'll have some Frank Sinatra.
Bitcoin tastes great.
Jeopardy? Can you hear me? Am I back?
Yep.
All right.
We're back.
So it turns out the Jeopardy theme song is an old Austrian Christmas song. I didn't know that. Oh,
yeah, it's actually Austrian. It's Mozart. You didn't know that?
Well said. Well said. So I'm not quite sure where I left off, but Wall Street seems to be quite enamored with this company. I think that the days of sort of network broadcast TV are dying. And these guys offer sort of monthly subscriptions. And if you subscribe to their service, you get like a whole bunch of channels and stuff. So I think this is sort of the world that we're moving towards. Anyway, you shake it. There's quite a bit of money to be made on the long side, right? $77 a share, $78 a share was the low. So probably into some sort of seasonal peak. We should at the very least. Oh, isn't that interesting? Look how a very natural reload zone counter trend rally would take us up and basically give share purchasers here a double from current levels. So that's an idea that I'm going to be watching closely for here. I'd like to see if I could sneak my way in on this stock here going forward. And, of course, you can see the monstrous gap all the way up top here, right? Gaps like to be filled. So, no real outright buy signal there. But, kind of the same sort of thing as we've been talking about here. If you can take advantage of the seasonal weakness, this actually might be not a bad area for us to be thinking about TRI SOF. So you can see how washed out the market is price momentum wise, and OBV, as I said, if anything, I would actually prefer that this be a down day so that we could actually get a nice volume impetus pattern to develop here. But you can see the divergence is starting to build here in momentum. So, I'm going to be keeping a close eye on that guy here going forward. Really interesting looking stock. All right, so I'll leave the stock market at that for today. Head on over to crypto. I think I've sort of talked to you guys at length about this recently. I kind of think that Bitcoin is almost moving opposite to the stock market. And as the stock market's sort of melting down, I think you could make the argument that Bitcoin sort of caught a sort of flight to safety bid. The general message that I put out heading into the Christmas break, which is, if anything, this is almost a bit cliche of Bitcoin. But we rallied up and, things like bullish bots tried to fire here. This is the 25 level. And I just sort of made the comment as we rallied off the bottom, then we want to consolidate a bit. If we moved up through the highs, then the bull was in control. If we moved through this 38.2, which was a 38.2 off of this level here, off of this high, then the bear was in control. So we went up, and this is so classic Bitcoin, guys. It's ridiculous. We rallied basically on Christmas Eve, right? There is December 24th. This is a 4-hour chart on the casino. Basically into the apex of the event. And then literally the moment Christmas actually hit, I don't know whether all the kids got Bitcoins in their stocking and they all hit the bid. I doubt it. But it was almost like if there was going to be buying into that event, and they even pulled, this is casino, so totally classic casino. But you can even see just on the short term, they painted a nice inside bar. Okay, everybody get bearish, and then one candle they went and ran everybody out of their shorts and then just dumped her. Total typical casino. I don't know whether I actually had 3 higher lows to work with to set this bot up. I just, and I suppose, if you were like, well, I'm just going to play the momentum of the market, and this thing was perking up, and Brian said, if we break to new highs, I want to be a bull. Well, very rarely does crypto do this, but it definitely did it here. Bitch slap, get the hell out. And, heading into that Christmas event, I think you could have made the argument that, well, Brian, this is actually pretty typical. And didn't we talk about, like, I remember posting in the lounge, don't get China'd. I think I remember talking on the broiler chicken show about how Bitcoin, I don't know whether it is specifically Chinese, but I've noticed in years gone by the Chinese love to shit on the Western kids right at Christmas. So I guess it shouldn't have surprised us. Bang, down we go. They wiped everything out. But what was interesting about this is, remember we had said that was off of this new high. That was a new respective. And actually here I need to adjust this. Sorry, guys. I thought I did. Anyway. So new 38.2 off of that high was down in here. And, good old Thomas, he likes to tell us, if the market can't respect and hold 38.2s, then odds are we're probably going to have to head a bit lower here. So interesting to see how we went careening through that, hit the 50% level. So Mr. Gann is sort of in charge of this market now. And if this is a sideways consolidation, maybe even a bearish bot off of like hourlies and stuff, and I heard some guys in the lounge were sort of throwing that idea around, then if we fail here, then what it really means is we got to head right back down to the original lows. And so to honor, our broiler chicken show and all that kind of stuff, I've been talking about the hangover. What does the hangover look like? In the background, this is the 2014 ultimate bottom. And then I think in 2015, we just go sideways and everybody just sort of calms down. But it almost feels like now we're in sort of this window right here. So be careful, everybody. I really feel as though there's one more bitch slapping to go here. Before we actually have found the bottom. And remember we talked about this like on the weekly charts. This is a new low. And of course, we can't really get overly bullish off the higher time frames until we actually start seeing W's here. If anything, a little disappointing that this turned out to be the low. One thing I did notice that kind of jumped out at me this morning seems to be, for one reason or another, the community has just decided this Mr. Pompeo guy is sort of the cheerleader of crypto du jour. Interesting. I thought I tweeted. Oh yeah, here it is. So this guy went on, Anthony Pompiliano. I should probably learn to pronounce his name correctly. Anyway, he went on, I think it was like CNBC this morning, and basically said that he was expecting this 3,000 level to be taken out. I suppose you could argue to a certain degree, when these tweets, they, who's these guys? Cointelegraph. They just happen to be a headline producer. But what I noticed just going through Twitter this morning is that everybody and their brother retweeted that statement. I don't know whether we'll see it here or not, but oh Jesus, what the hell's that? I didn't know we had porn in crypto. What the heck's going on? Probably have to stop following that person. All right. Well, anyway, I thought I saw a bunch of it. It must have been this morning. So it was interesting on that event when he sort of said, I'm looking for crypto to tank. Ironically enough, literally on that event, the market actually caught a bid. I think the battle lines here are pretty clear now. You can see there is 38.2. You want to make this really simple on yourself. It looks to me like there is your trading range. If we can recapture, and this is casino, so obviously your respective markets probably have levels. 37.49, call it 37.50, which makes sense too, because that's a big fat round number. 37.50 on the upside means that the selling is abated. And if we crap out through this low here, what is that? 35.50. That means the bear is officially in control. So, and that kind of makes sense too. It's a nice $200 trading range, and 3,500 itself is going to be a pretty important psychological level. And my hunch is if this does, and you could argue, bearish bots, one high. This could have been a second high, but that was taken out. Like I said, Mr. Pompeo came out and said, I'm looking for 3,000 to be broken. And literally the moment that he did that, the market started to rally away from that level. So we'll see how this goes. I think it's still a little bit early for us to declare that the bull won, the bear won, whatever. Right now, I think we're in a trading range. And I don't know, does New York close early, or is New York a full day today? I would imagine if they close a little bit early, like I said, Canadian markets are closed. So we don't have a lot of, and if I'm not mistaken, I think in the UK, Boxing Day is a holiday as well. So a lot of, we just have the North Americans playing their games right now. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, stock market's enjoying a bit of a rally now. So, yeah, here we are now. We're up 500 points. Holy, up and down like a horse George. You know who's going to come out here and be like, see, I told you, it's a bull, it's a bull. Oh, God, up and down like a horse drawers. So, I wonder whether if the stock market does get a little happier, whether that actually takes a bit of the wind out of Bitcoin sales here. Tough to say. I did see that, some people are saying, is it correlated to the stock market? Is it negative correlation? What is it? You can see the breadth of the market definitely has turned back to the green side here. So that's encouraging for stocks in balance. I would imagine, too, they probably don't want to print too ugly of a number heading into year end. Yeah, I'll leave stock market conversation at that for today. But I would just simply say, all you Bitcoiners, just watch the resolution of this trading range, and that'll sort of dictate our path going forward. This might just be a megaphone, and if that's the case and we resolve back bullishly, then ironically enough, it means that we're probably going to rally back up and brush new highs here. So I think the jury's still out right now, whether we break bull or whether we break bear. We did come into a support line here, and I think I have to wait until this level here is taken out before I make any grand conclusions about price. And I suppose one could argue if we do bots off of this level now, at least 33, no more than 66. I suppose we could argue if we start going one low, two lows, three lows, we could actually get another bullish setup try to come in here. You just never know in this crazy game called trading. For the time being, I don't have any setups working right now. I'm just sort of sitting on the fence, and that's sort of the tweet that I put out when we broke this low. Because this is a megaphone, price could get really wonky here. First and foremost, I have no opinion. I don't know what the fuck's going to happen here, which I know people hate to hear me say that, but the long and short of it is I just don't know. But we will know in earnest if we M out here and lose these levels, then for certain we're heading down. And this AB equals CD probably should take us back down to that sort of 3,100 area. I wanted to ask the community, and we lost Sen. Sen would have been a good person to ask about this. But we had a site member on Friday ask me if we could somehow replicate that Bloomberg mean study. And anybody who's watching this after, later on today, if you're watching on YouTube, if you can wrap your head around this conundrum, I actually think it'll be an extremely valuable tool that the community doesn't really have right now. So you could indeed actually create a nice little business model for yourself, or if you want to, work in conjunction with TRI, we can do it on the site. Stuart, if you're watching this later on, by all means, if we can use the Quandl data to try and help us figure this out, I think it would be valuable for our community. But the Bloomberg guys, they love this idea of markets returning to the mean and what is sort of their average price over the entire history of the asset. I actually went on TradingView and I tried to find sort of a mean tool, and there just isn't anything there. So again, if we can figure this out, it might actually become a really valuable product that the entire community might like, build a better mousetrap, world will beat a path to your door, blah, blah, blah. Benjamin, if you're watching this later on, you want to think about a script on how to build this, I think it'd be great. Sen, same thing, and any of our other programmers. You can see here and this is Brave New Coin, if we just basically load all of the data and this goes back to 2010, you can see that up to this point was 3,070 bars. And so I just created a nice little moving average of these 370 bars. What is the mean right now? And you can see there it is. It's awfully tough to see, but basically that is the mean right now. And it's sitting right now at about $1,500–1,600. The issue is, what we'd really love to be able to do is create an oscillator that just simply tells us what is relative price right now relative to that mean. And what should end up happening if we can create this tool is, as price moves up, in this particular study, you have to do it from the start of the study, whatever the first date is. And as price moves along, the moving average itself has to tick up every single time we have a new bar. And I'm not quite sure how to do that. So, if anybody on the community can figure that out and write a script where the moving average just simply adds a bar every time there's a new data print, and we can create a mean moving average. You can see this is manually done off of just, 3,070 bars, and it's created. There is the mean right there. But what you should see happen is basically under, as the market's moving up, and then this mean will slowly, it won't rise with price. We sort of zoom in here. What we should see happen, if we can build this mean indicator, is like through here, right? We should see this mean moving average just slowly move up, kind of like this, right? Kind of like that. And what should end up happening is, if we do a spread from current price versus the mean, right, we should see wide movements through here. And then as price comes back to the mean, we should see price, come back to, if we have like a zero line or something like that. And we should be able to create like a spread of the price of the asset relative to the mean. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Anybody here is a computer programmer? Nope, nobody. All right. Oh, Brian M., you are? Okay. Anyway, so that's sort of the big project that I'd love our community to try and wrap our heads around, is how do we create a script on TradingView to capture that mean study? And I frankly speaking, I don't know how to do that. You guys are all sort of super duper computer guys. I'm sure there's a way we can figure out how to do that. And like I said, if you can figure out how to do it, I think there's actually a business model to be made here. You could actually build a really nice website that will drive a lot of traffic, throw on either a Bitcoin donation address, or maybe even create like a little subscription model for a locked-in indicator on TradingView or something like that, as a really cool tool. And I think a lot of people would really like to use it. The only place that I found it is Bloomberg has it. Excuse me, just stretching. Bloomberg has it on their Bloomberg terminal, and of course that's proprietary. So anyway, that's sort of a fun little project. If you are a computer programmer and you'd like to add value, give back to the community, we'd love to be able to have a tool like that. All right, so we talked a little bit about what I'm expecting out of Bitcoin here in the short term. Big battle lines drawn. Who's going to win this battle? Considering stocks have caught a bit of a bid, my hunch is the bear is going to win this battle, but that's purely opinion. And of course, you all know what Brian thinks of people's opinions. Do you want to try and trade this bot setup off of lower time frames? Well, I definitely could see that it's there. One high, two highs, another M in here, and I'd be given the green light. The only issue is, did this thing actually retrace 33%? And I don't know. But sort of, it's funny when you see that, right? So it just made it. So technically, this bot is alive. And if you are thinking short and you'd like to participate, my hunch is 25 is going to set up right off of here somewhere. But trade, there it is. So, if anything, this is probably a good example of why I don't like to use. Well, I suppose you could argue one high, two highs, three highs. You could have gone short there. First high gets busted out, but your stop is all the way up top here. You get a nice little inside bar off of these lower time frame charts. It's not a terrible idea to join the party. You can see an inside bar tried to fire right there, but didn't. You get a nice little failure signal in here, inside bar, fractal, empire, or double top, M, whatever. I could completely understand the aggressive short-term trader hunting that trade. That wouldn't shock me. So all those people that are interested in hunting shorts, there's the bot levels for you to chew on. I'll throw that into the lounge. Put that into your pipe and smoke it. Nice to see, if I'm not mistaken, people are banging out winners here. Let's see what Joshua's up to this morning. So Joshua just posted this in the chart. Hey, the good old Cure coins, the health coins. I love those health coins. And if anything, this is a really great example of are all old coins going to zero? I think that's nonsense. These guys, for instance, and there's a bunch of them. I think there's probably about a half a dozen of these names. I think they definitely have a huge market going forward. I think there's also Pink Coin as well. So congratulations, Joshua. Everybody who sees the W here, I think that's pretty obvious. Would have been a bit tough to sneak in off a test of the lows because there was no W in there ahead of time. But, I suppose considering how weak the price was, if you just tried to sneak your way in off of this W here, that's a 1200. And gee whiz, what a coincidence. Here we are up at basically just about double that, eh? So my hunch is they're probably going to ramp it up to that double level. And then we'll see some pause. And also, too, probably this now starts to set up reload zones. If you didn't get in on this, but we're like, gee whiz, I sure would like to pick up a little bit of that. I mean, I don't know where the exact top's going to be. Nobody does. But if we think sort of something along those lines, what a coincidence. Hopefully everybody can see there's a cheeky little gap right there. So, and actually the chart looks pretty clean the whole way up here, right? So not bad. You know, there's a pretty good level for you to really stock. I might even throw in a bid. I always like these. I'm not even sure what you call them. Is there a name that they give all these? You know, there's like Pink Coin, Cure Coin. There's a few of them that are in this space. I like the donation names. I'm not even sure what you call them. But anyway, so congrats, Josh, if you got yourself off a nice trade. Way to go. And if you PTOY, is that another one? Folding there, that's slightly different, but I was thinking about folding coin as well. Anyway, the point of the matter here is, you know, they've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. Get in there and have some fun. You know, the great part about it is you guys all, you know, if you've taken the education program, you know what W's look like. And if anything, probably through here, we probably should be looking for like signs of divergence. So let's see if anything like that popped up. Oh, yeah. So can everybody see the nice little W in MACD here, which actually fired through here? So you could have actually been hunting all the way through here, no problem. Willie nice and stupid. Not a bad example. This is actually a really good example. Do you see where Willie went stupid here, but there was no divergence in price? So, you know, we often say Willie being stupid unto itself is not enough of a reason to take a trade. If you wait for this stupidity and then wait for the divergence, and also notice too, do you see the W that came in OBV here? And you know, if this is a new low, then that means that's an OBV divergence. And of course, we love OBV divergences, eh? So this low here, let's see what we got. Oh, it's just lower. So that low there was 840. This low here was 870. So indeed, can everybody see the OBV made a low? Made a higher low, but price made a lower low. And of course, there is the divergence in MACD with Willie Stupid. Wow, great looking. In fact, this would be like an El Tangonator. So congratulations, Joshua. It makes sense that you were making money with that. Very, very good trader that guy is. I think he'll do very well going forward. So, can't say there isn't stuff moving here. All right, enjoy. Oh, hello. Look at that. Look at this OBV. Damn, eh? Jesus. Willie Stupid. Cute little W coming in on MACD. That'll be a divergence as well if it confirms here. And move to the 200 SMA. Not going to quite produce a double, but pretty close. So, good old Abby, Art Bite. Geez, I haven't seen this thing move in a while. Look at that. What a pretty looking chart. Look at the massive divergence here. I don't know whether you guys can see that. It's great looking divergence. So, make hay while the sun's shining, my friends. We got a washed out altcoin market. Maybe time to start getting those nanny nibbles going again. Woo, look at that guy. AMP. We haven't talked about AMP in forever. Great looking W there. And actually, I haven't even really looked at Sen's screeners this morning. Was there a bunch of screeners that popped up? Anything new for us to chew on? We're already past the top of the hour, so I'll probably just wind this up now. But always interesting to pop in and just take a look at what Kairos is saying this morning. Oh, boy, there's a whole bunch of them. Jesus. So these are as of, I guess, late last night. Let's see what we got here. Some signals that Kairos spat up. We got A and B on Binance. So that's that one. Oh, yeah, it's okay. I mean, you're definitely at the bottom end of the range. Nice. Ooh, I like the OBV div there. Super sexy. Yeah, nanny nibbles. I don't know whether I would get too excited on the bull side here, but I guess I can understand. Nice little signal there and there. Nothing really to write home about on that one. Let's see, CVC. Good old Civic. No, we haven't looked at Civic in forever. All these names, they're all starting to come back here. Civic, yeah, I can see it's a smattering of a bottom. Nothing really to get too excited about there either. So, maybe go through the list of the W's in OBV and Willie, and then, do your own trading system. See whether it corresponds. Powerful move here. I don't know whether I really like the idea of chasing up here, though. It's a little bit late. And Mona. Hey, good old Mona. Mona actually is a great coin in Japan. This is on Bittrex. Let's see what we got there. Yeah, a little bit late. Not quite sure what Kairos sees there. Maybe this W here. Nah, nothing really to get too excited about there either. Okay, yeah, I think I'm going to hold off comment on any of those. I didn't really see anything that really jumps out at me too much today. But at least Kairos given us some names to chew on. Congratulations, Joshua, on your Cure coin. Nice one. Way to go. I think we actually talked about this recently. I suppose the alts will continue to enjoy their counter trend rally as long as Bitcoin doesn't crap out here. Kind of looks Emmy here, though, eh? You can see up, hit a high, well, there's a clothesline, 40.73, then down to 38.41, then 40.36, and 37.79. So there's already writing on the walls that, you know what, maybe we ought to just cool our jets. So if anything, it kind of makes sense looking at some of these names. Kind of iffy. If you're already, oh, look at that. Well, so much for that rally. Good old crypto. Gotta love it. If anything, guys, fantastic commentary. Do not chase this shit or you'll get your head handed to you. We talked about if you actually want to join this trade, you got to work your bid down a little bit lower. And if anything, Kevin, isn't this a great example of you smacking up against the 200 SMA and getting rejected off of it? So I completely understand, guys that did take the longs through here, they just had their sell orders and they got filled on sell halves, on doubles, yada, yada, yada. And now, if anything, for heaven's sakes, people, do not chase when we're ripping up top here like this. And then also too, temper your enthusiasm with regard to crypto if good old Bitcoin here rolls over, right? If it does, then it means all this sort of trading and stuff's going to have to go on pause. Yes, you can still continue to do nanny nibbles, but we all understand nannies don't have any huge short-term upside or downside, objectives. That's the whole point of nanny nibbles, is they don't want to be staring at the screens. But I kind of think we need to let this resolve. And if Bitcoin goes back into the bull, then we should see a whole bunch of these altcoins all start perking up again. Probably the last thing we'll leave off with here today, the Ethereum bot short setup. I think on balance we can argue that move stop to trailing, stops getting blown out here. I think that the bear in my opinion, and of course what Brian thinks of opinions, but I think the bear slide is pretty much done and into that tax loss selling event window. We're trying to find some sort of base. If anything, I'd almost expect that this low here has to be tested again. So maybe that's what we see happen here. And then, if Bitcoin really has bottomed, what we should see happen is it comes back down, puts in a nice W, and away we go. So if anything, that's sort of what I'd like to see over the next week or two. I also expect that, this is in Bitcoin terms. So, maybe Ethereum in US dollar terms has a little sharper sell-off than Bitcoin itself. But my hunch is the sort of cyclical pivot should be put in within the first week or two of the new year. So that's really what I'm going to be looking for. And I think you can make the argument that we did have like Kairos signals that fired on this doji right here, sort of, just strong momentum signals. You could argue if you took longs off of this little consolidation breakout here, you just got paid, right? And if anything, at the very least, maybe just get yourself into a risk-free position, sell 3/4 of the position, whatever, at a nice profit, book a little profit for your account. And then you got that little freebie. If this thing does decide to work its way back up, you can just ride it. I think also, too, if we do on things like, what a coincidence. Can you see how reload zones will line up with that sort of retest of this original bottom level? So, that's sort of what I'm thinking about on big names like Ethereum now. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we even saw that things like Litecoin had already started to break down. If we head over to MEX, I think it is. On MEX, we had what I thought could potentially be a bullish setup. You can see 1 low, 2 lows, 3 lows, 4 lows, set up pretty nicely. Move stop to scratch, get the fuck out. And really, I got a feeling that this is the kind of environment that we're in. Sort of head fake. Am I a bull? Nope, not a bull. Bull your jets. And, we got this big old nasty tail down here. Interesting if we do kind of the same sort of thinking as Ethereum. If we do fibs off of the entire range, could we get a nice little pullback into lows down in reload zones? 78.6 is going to be against that original bottom. Might even get 88.6s, but in the short term, AB equals CD. I think we're going after this tail, and that tail lines up nicely with the original sort of double bottom breakout level. See that? So I think in the short term, this is another name that sort of supports the idea that maybe the market's a bit frothy up here and still needs to clean itself up. Okay, I think I'm going to leave the rant at that for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. As I'd said, we've given you levels. I posted this chart in the lounge. If we lose these lows, those people that are interested in hunting shorts here, lower time frame, your day traders that are mature, that have played this game a while, new people to the site, really do not recommend you even looking at this chart. It's just going to drive you crazy. But all the sort of, veterans on the site that have been trading for a while and that can manage their emotions and understand the nuances of day trading and risk management around this, there's something for you to look at as well. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it at that for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed the presentation. Happy Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all that kind of fun stuff. It is the 26th. As I said, today is a holiday here in Canada. So, don't get too sucked up into the wild gyrations of the market. You might find that the goddamn Dow is actually, back only up 100 points by the end of the day, or might even be negative. You never fucking know in this game. But given the holiday nature and, of course, the tax loss selling window that's supposed to happen for tomorrow, my hunch is there's a lot of back and forth here still to be done. Okay, guys, have yourselves a great day. I'll see everybody in the lounge. I'm going to be working away on the level 2 automated videos today, so that's sort of what's on my docket. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. What do you think, Mr. Mayor? Did we do a half-decent job for these people today?
As always, Mr. Beamish. Great value.
Excellent. All right, so the Mayor and the Beamish. We got the bear and the Beamish and the mayor and the Beamish. One day we're going to get the mayor and the bear doing this on their own. Anyway, have yourselves a great day, everybody. Mr. Mayor, if you could take us out of here, all the best, and bye for now.